Welcome to the Lake District. If you're joining me for the first time, hi, I'm Caroline and I'm spending a week going on adventures in the Lake District with my partner Andy. We've ambled around the National Trust's Area of Force, taken a boat across Derwent Water to hike Cat Bells, and after falling in love with the Borrowdale Valley, returned the following day to hike Crag. We've also been slightly more daring, scrambling across the nail-biting sharp edge to summit Blencathra, and traversed the scary but exhilarating Via Ferrata on the Honister Pass. Feeling the pull of the Borrowdale Valley, we'll be back once more, and today we'll be tackling the smallest Wainwright that is Castle Crag. Good morning. Today we've come along to Rosthwaite in the Borrowdale Valley because we're going to be hiking up Castle Crag. It's a circular route that should take about 4.1 miles, so not overly strenuous, but towards the top there is supposed to be some scrambly scree and it should hopefully give us some very rewarding views as well. Morning. I wish that I could share the smell that we've got right now because it's an overwhelming smell of paint, and we've had to walk through a little village and also a farm, and we've got to the point where they obviously shear the sheep. They will feed them with the vitamins that they need, and they also will mark the sheep. And I didn't realise it's actually a paste, but that's what all of the little buckets were saying. Muddy path to the right. That's a high style.
It is. Good scrub of the hole in the middle.
Good, but I'm good, thanks. I think that might be for dogs. Everyone just seems to be so friendly here in the Lake District, and when we rocked up to the car park, people were talking about what hikes they were doing from there, and one family was also doing Castle Crag like ourselves, but there was this one bloke who said that he was going to be doing Scarfell Pike, and so we've been having a look on the OS map wondering what route he might have been taking because it wasn't a familiar start point to ourselves. And what we've realised is that valley that's behind me, it looks quite deceptive, but from what I can gather, I think if you just go all the way up that valley, but it does very much creep behind the mountain range, it will eventually lead you up to the top. It's not an overly popular one to do, but it is supposed to be one of the nicest ones because of how quiet it is. Maybe at a future trip that might be a path that we take to get up to the top. The trails brought us up onto what seems like potentially a road that Land Rovers or something could come along. We've only been walking on it for a matter of metres before we now need to turn off at this point, but there's a spectacular view down onto Derwent Water, and then you've got the craggy cliffs here, and then if we keep on turning it around, you've got just these green fern-covered hills behind, and just really, really spectacular little point here, and this isn't even at the peak. Whoa, okay, that's very unstable. Maybe don't grab onto that. I'm almost certain that we're near the top now, because there's a path going off down there, which is going to be the path that we take to get back to the car park to make it into a circular. And then this is the point where we need to go up in order to get to the top, and that's the point where you've got to go up it and back down it. But it's just a really small part, so hence why I think we're almost there. It's definitely almost at the top, because the blog that I'd read said that there was quite a scary looking scree section to get to the very peak of it. I would definitely agree that looks a lot more overwhelming than I think it actually is, because off to the side there looks to be quite a well maintained zigzag path, so that's what I'm heading for right now. To be honest with you, I'm more concerned about coming down than going up. We've just detoured off of the path up to the summit for a few minutes, because it looked like there were some quite cool standing stones around here. And what I can't get over is that earlier on this year, when we went to Wales and we decided to hike up the Gliders, because I knew that it was going to take us to a landscape that was as epic as, I suppose, what this feels like. It was that shale slate-like rock, and I just always assumed that you had to hike a full-on mountain to get this kind of craggy landscape. And yet this, I really would describe it as being like a hill. It has not been difficult at all. And this is amazing that you get this kind of reward for hardly any effort at all. And we haven't even reached the top. You know, you've got this kind of landscape here, we've got amazing views out in that direction there. Whilst the actual trail up was really quite quiet, I think because there are so many different trails that will take you up to the top of Castle Crag, it became very, very busy on that shale part, and I think it was because that was where most of the paths all converged. So instead of going up to the top to have lunch up there where we're expecting it to be really busy, just shy of being at the top, we're stopping in this shaley standing stones area, away from the masses and the noisy children.
Yeah.
I'll get enough of that next week, starting back at school on Monday, so it's just my last bit of peace. And surprise, surprise, what are we having?
Ham and egg sandwiches.
Ham and egg sandwiches.
And a pork pie.
You're having the pork pie.
Yeah.
Pork pies are disgusting.
When?
Sorry, my bad. You got a bit more. Oh, you gave me the one without the thing. It's no use to me now. We're all filled up from lunch now, so we're going to take the, I don't know, maybe 100, 200 steps up to the summit of Castle Crag.
I know it's the wrong way. Let's see what
3, 2, 1.
I'll just take
Don't break it.
Not like the last one yesterday. Oh no!
You broke it.
I broke it.
Oh, well.
Oh. Successfully made it to the top of Castle Crag, and as I predicted, it was quite busy when we first got up here, quite a large family and then another large group. We've got really lucky because they've all just left together and it's just the two of us up here at the top. It's really quite a fascinating landscape up here, just below where we stopped off for lunch. Super craggy, super shale-like, and then when you actually come up to just shy of the peak, it's quite flat, it's very grassy, you've got these very beautiful mature trees growing on it, and I just hadn't expected for the landscape to look quite like this. It's very different, it's very spectacular, it's very pretty, and just for such little effort to get up here. I keep on saying it, but I really am just absolutely blown away by this walk. Just as we're starting our descent, I couldn't help but overhear a couple of ladies say, oh no, those people have done exactly the same thing as us and they've got to the dead end of the wall, and I ended up asking them about it. So you might just be able to see a wall behind me in the distance there, and apparently if you're coming from Rosthwaite like what we did this morning, when you come through a gate the path Y's off, and they were explaining that the path to the right looks a lot more well trodden, and therefore they went with that one thinking it must be the main path, and it's that one to the right that's really well trodden actually leads you to this dead end of a wall, and bless them, they both had to go completely back on themselves to then get around the way in which we did. They also said that they seem to think that the reason why it looks a lot more well trodden is because if people take the left path, they just walk on it the once, whereas if people take the right path, they walk out and then they walk back on it again because they've gone wrong and they've hit that dead end. So if you're watching this video thinking about doing this hike, that might just be one thing to be very aware of, so that you don't find yourself completely going out of your way and then having to go back on yourself again. My tip for tackling this beast: do not look out over the height of it. Just keep a really close eye on your feet and exactly what you're going to be standing on next, because I think it's more of a mental thing that is going to put you off doing it. But actually, if you're just concentrating on where you're stepping and you just get on with it, it's actually really not that scary, and it's not as loose as what it looks. Oh wait, what? You're always taking the mickey out of me. Oh yeah, that's a tricky one. Thank you. The trails brought us out down by the river, and it is the river that feeds into the Derwent Water. It's just giving a really nice different feel to the hike of what we were hiking through this morning, completely different to this. And there's people out down by the river just kind of chilling, hanging out. There was one dog that went for a full-on swim into the depths of the water. And then there's been a couple of, I want to say curious ducks, but I think more so than anything, they were coming over hoping that we were going to feed them. And my guilt trip is really setting on in because they've been such perfect models for me, but I know that it's really not good to feed the ducks, especially not human foods. I'm not entirely sure why there's these huge cairns throughout this wood. We are pretty much right down in the valley, maybe, I don't know, 20 metres up above the water. No, not even 20 metres, maybe more like 10. So I wouldn't have thought that it would have been such bad visibility for people in here, but as you can probably see behind me, they are dotted about every now and again. I don't know why they've got them through here. If you do, I would love it if you could leave me a comment and let me know. And whilst we're on the topic of these stones and rocks, one of the things that I'm definitely picking up on is that the more relaxed these walks are, such as Castle Crag that we did today, the more, I guess, poor etiquette I'm seeing. And what I'm talking about is things like graffiti. The amount of rocks and stones that were graffitied up at the top up there was really quite sad to see. And what was actually quite alarming is a lot of them had the year of 2021 written on them. And I'm trying to work out if that's because the National Trust, who I think owns that land up there, perhaps go up and remove the graffitied rocks every now and again in an attempt that if people can't see that other people have graffitied, that it will discourage people from joining in. But of course, as soon as you see a graffitied rock, you think, oh, well, if everyone else is doing it, I'll join in as well, which please don't go with that. But my other thinking is, Is it that in 2021, people who wouldn't in previous years have taken to hiking out in the countryside are now starting to do it, and they don't understand that this is actually classed as being graffiti? So it's a little bit of a shame, because I'm finding that the more epic the hikes, the less of that I'm seeing. Well, the sign definitely said cows in field, and they have to be some of the funniest looking cows I've ever seen. I've driven the short 5-10 minutes along to the Great Wood, which is where we were a couple of days ago, and it's because I really want to go for a quick dip in Derwent Water, so if we can quickly get changed. Shoot, that normally works.
Try clapping.
Oh, great. That was a lovely refreshing dip after the hike, but I didn't stay in there for too long because there's a lot of signs around Lake Derwent explaining that there is this blue-green algae that's come over from New Zealand, and it can sometimes give a bit of a rash. I looked quite carefully in the water to make sure that there wasn't anywhere I was swimming, but naturally the longer that I'm in there, the higher the risk is of it. I did also hang around on the lakeshore for a little bit, and I saw another person coming out of the water with just a bathing suit on as well, so it wasn't like a wetsuit was required. It would have been nicer to stay in for longer because it wasn't actually as step up, it wasn't actually as cold as what I was expecting, but keeping it short and sweet just for safety measures.